Hello there. The chaos in Great Britain continues. After the resignation of the finance minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, his successor has now announced quite a U-turn in fiscal policy. And as I promised this morning in this video, we'll talk about it. The British government cashed in on its tax plans a month and a half after Prime Minister Truss took office. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt, who has only been in office since Friday, said on Monday that almost all measures announced almost 4 weeks ago would be reversed. And that's a decent defeat for Truss, who had defended the plans to the last minute. This will avoid taking on new debt to finance the tax cuts, is what Hunt said. The basic tax rate of 20% will remain, and the government's most important goal is economic stability, he says. The state energy price cap was intended for a period of 2 years. Now it is to be limited to a period of 6 months for the time being. And similar to Germany, many citizens and companies in Great Britain are suffering from the high energy and food prices, just on a much higher level than here in Germany. In addition, Hunt cashed in on a planned corporate tax hike and other tax cuts. This U-turn doesn't really look good for Truss. The British media had already zeroed in on Truss. After her shaky start in office, The Economist ruled that it was uncertain whether she would be able to stay on the post longer than a lettuce would survive on the shelf. And the tabloid Sun promptly started a corresponding live stream that tests this thesis. The background to the 180-degree turnaround is that the financial markets went crazy after the announcement of massive tax breaks without a counter-financing plan. Investor confidence in the UK government appeared to have been, completely lost. The pound plummeted against the US dollar, and the Bank of England had to intervene several times and buy government bonds. Rising interest rates on home loans exacerbated the cost of living crisis for many homeowners. With this U-turn in British economic policy, the new finance minister or Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, has calmed the financial markets, but now entrepreneurs are sounding the alarm. Without government support, they fear a horrendous rise in energy costs. The British government wanted to boost economic growth and curb high inflation with a costly package of measures, but those two don't work together anyway. But the financial markets reacted in panic due to concerns about high debts. Now the new British Finance Secretary Jeremy Hunt has announced a U-turn in economic policy. And this in turn has triggered unrest among British entrepreneurs. They fear exploding energy prices next spring because the state energy price cap was shortened from 2 years to 6 months and will therefore expire in the spring. This will be a huge blow to many who have already worried about how they will survive, said Siobhan Haviland of the British Chambers of Commerce. The government must deal with the concerns of entrepreneurs and offer them planning security and other targeted support measures. In addition to rising inflation rates and interest rates, it's energy costs that keep entrepreneurs up at night, said Haviland. Prime Minister Liz Truss' government's original plan included a tax cut for top earners and a costly freeze on gas and electricity prices. The new Finance Minister Hunt has cashed in on the controversial plans. The priority for the government for the time being is restoring stability, Hunt said when presenting the cornerstones of his new budget. I fear that there will be more difficult choices, both on taxes and on spending, as we meet our commitment to reducing the debt ratio of the economy over the medium term. That is what Hunt warned. All departments would have to redouble their efforts to make savings, and some areas of spending would have to be cut. His actions sent the sterling higher against the dollar and the euro, while bond yields fell. His ministry also wants to review whether a costly freeze on gas and electricity prices can be maintained beyond this winter. Hunt announced in his televised address, and after the review it should be determined how the government will subsidize the massively increased bills for electricity and gas beyond April next year. The budget should be complete by October 31st. Prime Minister Truss only fired her confidant, the previous Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kwasi Kwarteng, on Friday and replaced him with ex-Foreign Minister Hunt. A tax cut package announced by Kwarteng 3 weeks ago had caused unrest on the financial markets due to the threat of high government debt, causing interest rates on British government bonds to skyrocket and causing the pound to collapse. Truss has fired the former finance minister on Friday, as I said, and he is considered a pawn sacrifice to save Truss. Kwarteng had worked with Truss on the multi-billion-dollar tax cuts and enlarged spending to curb energy prices that had a devastating impact on the markets. The central bank felt compelled to intervene by buying bonds and thus reassuring investors. At the Tories' party conference earlier this month, Truss defended her package of measures and swore to her fellow party members that the main thing was growth, growth, growth. But she could not finally dispel the doubts. Despite scathing criticism of her economic policies, Truss wants to hold on to her position. Her focus remains on delivering. A government spokesman said that on Monday when asked if Truss would take action on this failure to implement the tax policy and the cap on energy prices. And so you see, they are really in trouble. And as I already said this morning, this government is now really on a time frame. And the comparison between Truss and the letters is not so far from reality, to be honest, because she is completely powerless now. And the lame duck always comes up at the moment. And a lot of people say that Jeremy Hunt is the secret prime minister in Downing Street now. And he is pulling the strings. And you can see that by the announcement he made on Monday. He completely shred to pieces the plans of Liz Truss. So if she was convinced that a U-turn like this was necessary, she would have been the one announcing this in a very proper and detailed way if it was her plans as well. But of course, those are Jeremy Hunt's plans. Those are the plans of everyone not being related to this government before Kwarteng was fired, because everybody not on Truss side knew that those plans are not going to work. Just to go a few weeks back when we were talking about her tax cuts plans in the leadership race and especially on the Tory party conference. Nobody with a hint of knowledge of financial markets would have said that this is going to work. And now we see what's going to happen. So the betting shops are not paying you a lot if you say that Truss is going to be gone soon. And the times are staying quite interesting. And as promised this morning, tonight, we're going to talk a little bit more about Truss and Brexit. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.